What can I do for you?
Oh, a little song, a little dance, Batman's head on a lance. Tell me, what do you know about?
I don't know anything about Batman.
Really? Well, how about a little you and me?
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes, and we might not have picked the best week to launch This Week in Batman. We've been planning it for a few days, and I don't know, the entire Bat universe fell apart. Josh, how you doing?
I'm doing well. You know, you think it's not the best week. I'm like, man, what a week to launch this. So I think we're on two different pages here, but no, it's definitely a lot happened. I think we landed on starting this on Saturday, and then Monday, Tuesday, just, shit hit the fan.
Absolutely. So if you're unfamiliar with Josh, he's on the Comics Aficionados. He's also a critic for BatmanNews.com. He's also the man behind PopByCulture.com as well. Yep. So definitely check him out there. There will be links in the video description. And before we get into all this Bat news, and there's a ton of it, I do want to say, if you're going to Megacon this weekend, definitely check out the guys at Comics Elite. They're going to have a booth there, and they're going to have those wonderful Carla Cohen exclusive, stunning Batman 89 variant covers. If you get the minimal trade dress one, it will come with a certificate of authenticity. The pre-sale went great. They sold out almost immediately. So that is the only place that you can get them. So if you're going to be in Orlando at Megacon, look at those guys up and definitely get you a copy of that comic book. Now, with that out of the way, Josh, let's talk about all this Batman news. It's difficult to gauge what we should talk about first, but I guess we should talk about the main title. James Tynion is stepping away. He's declined an exclusive DC contract to extend and work on Batman. He's going to be ending his run in November. He's going over to Substack. We're not sure who's going to be taking over. Jorge Jimenez has confirmed he's staying on the title as an artist, at least for now. What are your thoughts on this? This kind of came out of nowhere.
Oh, it definitely came out of nowhere. I was not expecting this. I had actually told you I was at work when all this news started breaking, and I had stepped out for my lunch break, and I saw I had a message from you. I'm like, hey, we need to talk about James Tynion leaving. And I was like, that has to be a typo. And then my Discord group for Batman News just started blowing up. But I mean, look, we've had months worth of years, I guess, talking about the comic book industry, the big two, how well or not well they're treating their talent. And I think this Substack is definitely a shakeup to the industry. And we're seeing, creators are understanding what their worth is, and they're going where the money is. And I cannot blame them, but I was definitely surprised.
Yeah, it's a big loss because he revitalized Batman. Tom King kind of set the floor on what Batman sales are. It's about 70,000 is as low as you can go in today's market.
Pretty much.
And he brought it back up to 130. He essentially doubled sales. Oh,
yeah, definitely. I mean, I think in a lot of, ways, Tom King kind of went too far in deconstructing Batman. James Tynion took us back to a traditional type of storytelling. I haven't been the biggest fan of his work on Batman, but I understand what people are gravitating or why they're gravitating towards it. So I completely get the sales. People were also at home. It was the pandemic. They needed something to do. In some cases, people had extra spending money. It makes sense that the sales lifted. So, but yeah.
Absolutely. So good on him. He's left. He's leaving Batman in a good place. Now, 100%. Who do you think is going to replace him? The names in my mind, just as far as people that are currently writing Batman stories: Tom Taylor, Ram V, Stephanie Phillips, who did say mysteriously on Twitter that she's writing a book with artists she thought she would never work with, and she hasn't released the details on. Mariko Tamaki, obviously she'd be moving up from Detective Comics. John Ridley, that one seems a little bit more far-fetched because he is writing I Am Batman with Chase Fox. Two other names that in my mind DC would probably bring in for a project like this: Ta-Nehisi Coates, he is writing the new Superman movie, and Brian Michael Bendis, who was originally tabbed, like he and Tom King were going to swap characters when he was on Superman and Tom King was on Batman. Obviously, they abandoned those plans. Any of those do you think is most likely? Who are the people at BatmanNews.com putting their money on?
We've had a lot of back and forth conversations about this, and I honestly don't know. I think with Zdarsky, you can probably rule it out as much as I want. My two top picks for personal choice would be either Zdarsky or Ram V, and I don't think it'll be either one of them. Ram V's kind of got his own path going as well. He's also got a little bit of a thing going on with Substack with Hickman.
Jonathan Hickman, yes.
And Zdarsky's kind of made it clear he doesn't want to do these major characters because he wants to have more freedom as a creator, and I think that's why he's been successful. And for the past 2.5 years, we've kind of referred to Daredevil as the best Batman book on the stands anyways, so I kind of feel like we've got a little bit of that there. I have a suspicion that they're probably going to try to tap Williamson, and I think it's more so of he's quick, he's efficient, he's reliable. So I think they're going to have to react, and they're looking at more so how they can react to this and get something out and try not to lose the pace of things. And Williamson is a company man. They ask him to do something. He says how high, and then he jumps. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's him. I could see Tamaki, potentially stepping up. I think she's capable of it from execution and timing wise. And it would help kind of keep some synergy. She's already in tune with what they're doing in the Batman universe, or Tom Taylor as well. I think he's already got a lot on his plate though. So
he is doing the new main Superman book.
He's got Superman, he's got Nightwing, he's got some books outside of DC. He made an announcement or hinted at an announcement yesterday, I believe, that he's got a DC project coming up that wasn't deceased. So maybe it is Batman. I don't know. I don't think it's going to be Stephanie Phillips. I
don't think so either, but if you look at her Twitter feed, perhaps. Maybe. I think it'll probably be Tom Taylor if DC gets their way. I think they want somebody that's a big name writer that's associated with the character, and I think they like what Tom Taylor has done. I have a wish list of my own. It does include Chip Zdarsky. The other two names that would be on mine, Peter J. Tomasi, Robert Venditti.
Yeah.
It feels like up to this point, DC does not value Robert Venditti the way I do, or Peter J. Tomasi. But those two, I think, would be very good choices, although some may consider them safe.
I guess, yeah. Tomasi, I think you could consider safe because he's worked on Batman before, and he has a pretty tenured history with Batman. Venditti, I don't know if they would consider it safe. In general, though, if the executives at DC did not have an emergency meeting to start rethinking their exclusive contracts, I think they're stupid because they run too much of a risk. James Tynion definitely was not a number one name when they first handed him Batman, and he's built himself to that. And that's
a stopgap.
Oh yeah, that was good for DC. But the moment he's at that level, they lost him. So they need to get some assurances in not to do that. And if they're going to get people on contracts, they're just going to have to drop money to do it. And I know they don't want to, but you need to.
We'll see how it goes. It should be very exciting times for Batman. And, I'm excited to see who the next writer is going to be. But we had other news this week, Josh.
Oh,
have you heard of Tim Drake?
I don't know. Who's this Tim Drake character that you're speaking of?
For some reason, I can't remember the newspaper that said that, Robin, after like 90 or 81 years, has been confirmed bisexual. Tim Drake's only been around for like 32. So they got that wrong. But
came out in 89, I believe, is when his character first debuted. So,
yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, look, I don't know if you can see I'm wearing a Peacemaker shirt. Well, I got to get, and Peacemaker said in the Suicide Squad that he would eat a beach of dicks for the sake of freedom and peace. Yeah, apparently Tim Drake would as well. I don't know. No, look, I don't care for this, and it's not so much that Tim is being presented as bi or gay. Like I think there are ways you could have gone about doing this, and it would have been a little more acceptable. But I think they've just been so haphazard in how they've gone about this story. So much of the quote unquote character growth happened in between books and off page, and it just kind of came to this. And more than anything, it just feels like pandering. And before anyone decides to call me a homophobe, I'm gay, and this is just garbage. This is garbage direction. I don't want this for Tim. I hate when they take characters that have been around, have a history, and change them like this. I do think you have instances with characters where their emotional lives haven't been explored, and I think Tim's has been explored pretty well, and it's pretty clear he's not bisexual or gay. So
it's crazy, and Megan Fitzmartin doing this, someone not associated really with DC Comics, certainly not associated with Tim Drake. I know that she did the Future State story. Wow, 2 issues, and all of a sudden to make a change like this, I don't know that it's probably coming from her. one of the oddest things about this, and I didn't really talk about in the video that I originally did on the channel, is them de-aging him by about 10 years to tell the story. This comes across as really kind of creepy.
Yeah, when we had Rebirth, we had that period where we jumped forward a few years, and now it seems like they're bringing a lot of the characters back. DC constantly does this. They get characters, they start kind of aging them up, making them more independent, so they stand alone, and then like panic and pull them back. I think the artwork here makes them look even younger as well, which doesn't help the situation. But choices are made and they're very interesting, and I don't agree with them. But I thought you said you loved this idea. I thought you were on board.
Yes, I've been championing this thing since. I have no problems if you want to work towards a moment. You have to work towards it. You don't just get to puff it out of thin air, Brian Michael Bendis style,
right?
With Bobby Drake, which is almost what they did with Tim Drake. So some people were saying they've been working towards this. Yeah, for 2 issues. What are you talking about?
Yeah, people try to say that there's been queer coding going on with Tim for years and decades, and I don't see it. I've clearly read a lot of Batman books, a lot of Robin books. I'm very familiar with Tim Drake, and I don't know. I feel like if you have 2 straight, I think as an industry and in media or just society in general, we have a tendency to take 2 straight men that have a good relationship and just be like, oh, well, they must be gay. And I think that's shitty. Like, my best friend is a straight guy, and he's caught flack for hanging out with me, like, oh, are you gay? And I'm like, no, come on, man. But I don't see the queer coding. I don't think it's there. I think it's a lot of fanboys just having wishful thoughts, and that's fine. Like, go write your fanfic, but I don't want my
shipping
fanfic
happens.
Yeah, it does. I don't want that fanfic being like main continuity though.
It is strange. I mean, we've just seen him. He's been in a years long relationship with Stephanie Brown up until very recently.
Yep.
And then the next time we saw Tim Drake literally was in this story. If you discount Future State, which is in the future.
Yes. It's in. Yeah. I mean, they spent so much of Young Justice building up Tim and Steph to then come in and just immediately do this. I think it was an interview with Polygon, but the writer went in talking about how like this had to be Tim's story because this is who Tim is. And then she had a very interesting comment where she said something along the lines of, I tried to read as much Tim Drake comics as I could before writing this to make sure I had a grasp on the character. And I just kind of felt like that was her giving away. She hasn't really read much Tim Drake. And I usually try to avoid saying like, have you even read comics? Because it can be condescending. But I have to ask, like, how much have you actually read of Tim Drake? Like, everyone that I know that has a good tenured history with this character, they don't see this and they don't buy it. So at Batman News, Jay Oz did a review for this book. He has a really good assessment and breakdown. Tim is his favorite character. And Jay is probably one of the best people I know. He approached it in a good way. So if you want to read some thoughts, go check that out.
Absolutely. So there was controversy. I imagine this was a little bit what DC Comics was going for. But I'll be honest, Josh, I don't believe that Megan Fitzmartin made this decision. I think they told her to make this decision.
Yeah, I was definitely of that impression going
James
in.
Tynion has specifically said in his newsletter that he's featuring Tim Drake front and center in Fear State. They're going to let somebody that has nothing to do with the character make a decision like this before James Tynion goes into his big event featuring the character.
Yeah, I definitely feel like James probably presented the idea. I think she was probably on board with it though. I don't think she was. I don't think they had to like force her to write it.
No.
Yeah, I think she's like, oh yeah, I can do this. Yeah.
Hey, people are upset, and I don't blame them. And there are people out there that are very, very happy about this.
And that's the thing.
Happy for you too.
Anytime you change a character that's got a history there, like you're gonna have some pushback, and I think that's something publishers need to realize. Like, if you're going into this knowing you're gonna ruffle some feathers, so don't act shocked when you do. But for people that are enjoying this, hey, I'm glad you're enjoying it. I hope they actually do good stories with Tim, and if they're gonna go this LGBTQ route, I hope they don't go on these standard tropes of like.
You don't want him to get Iceman, where he just becomes a caricature of a stereotype.
Oh yeah. 90% of the gay stories out there are all the same. So I don't want it. I don't want more of that.
Perhaps that's another video.
Another one.
All right, let's get into some of the new comics. We had 3 big debuts. We do not have time to talk about all of them in depth, so we'll talk about the 2 big ones. The first one is one that, listen, I remember being in the school cafeteria when I was a little kid trading Batman cards from Tim Burton's original film 1989. And it was a big deal, and everybody was shocked that, Jack Nicholson was going to play the Joker, and, Michael Keaton can't be Batman. I had just come off, watching like Mr. Mom and Johnny Dangerously. I was like, oh, Michael Keaton's great. Ended up being a really fun movie. I wasn't a comic reader at the time. And now that I look back on it, it's not really very emblematic of Batman as far as the comic characters. It's definitely its own take. So I was expecting this Batman 89 from Sam Hamm and Joe Quinones to have it like that Burton flavor to it. I don't know, Josh, do you think it delivered that Burton flavor?
I don't think it delivered that Burton flavor. I feel like that was probably a wise choice not to attempt that, though. I think a lot of people have tried to do that in the past with different films and even books to a degree. And it comes off looking like someone trying to do that. So I feel like they paid homage to the movie in respectful ways while telling a story that I thought was a decent and fun story.
The art's definitely the standout. The characters look exactly like they do from the movie. It's just Gotham doesn't look like it does in the movie.
Agreed. Joe Quinones is the artist here, and I have a lot of respect for the guy, and I love the work that he did. I love the way he's designed the characters. Gotham itself does look way more bland. It doesn't have that Gothic architecture like they did in the films, and I wish he would have leaned more into that. I'm hoping that they do lean more into that. But this issue too was interesting because I was expecting like Batman right out of the gate, and it's Harvey Dent that's pretty much front and center of the entire issie. So there's a few debuts. We've already seen Billy D. Williams, Harvey Dent, but we got the debut of Commissioner Gordon's daughter. Yep.
We also got the debut of the new Robin. I guess that was supposed to be Marlon Wayans.
Yep. That was the plan, and at the time Warner Brothers said no. So, It's nice to see it come to fruition. I don't know how in line this is with what Burton wanted to do, but if it is in line with the story he wanted to tell, I'm happy that it's actually seeing the light of day.
What else did I have in there? There were some strange things. Like, my biggess issue probably is I don't think in Tim Burton's Batman universe in the 3rd movie that Batman would have killed somebody. And he essentially murders an innocent man here and puts another one in the ICU, and he might die. I was a little bit surprised by that development.
I mean, we have to keep in mind in Batman Returns, he did tape a bomb to a guy's belly and then drop him down
That was a bad guy. That wasn't an innocent person.
True. Very true. That is.
He killed a truck driver. He literally killed an armed guard.
Yeah, that's fair. It was probably a poor choice. It was.
I will give him this because when that scene happens in the book, I said to myself, there's no way that the driver of that truck is living. They just dropped him.
Yeah.
And in fact, they did die. I was like, I guess it's comic books. And they actually followed it up. So I was a little surprised by that. So they were definitely going a little bit different and veering off of the tone of Burton, not just the look and feel of it, but also I think things that the story beats that you probably would have gotten in the book.
Agreed. It's Sam Hamm's the writer. I'm not too familiar with him.
He's the screenwriter of the Tim Burton movies.
Okay, there we go. So, there's probably some push to make it a little more modern or a little bit more in line with maybe what we see today, or maybe he felt like he needed to with today's films. And, if you've seen Zack Snyder's BVS or Justice League, Batman's a little questionable at times.
Also, I do want to say, when you see the Marlon Wayans Robin character, I thought that was a Batman copycat. It wasn't explicitly oh, that's exactly who that character is. I thought that was a copycat Batman at the beginning. It didn't just pop right off the page to me.
Yeah, I would say the green for me gave it away. And I also saw promo art where they were doing the sketch design. So that's probably why I didn't question it. I saw it and I was like, all right, cool. That's who that is. But I can understand that if you haven't looked at that, it definitely would have been a little questionable as to who that character is.
And then the last thing is Prince is not playing Joker in this book. He's just somebody dressed up as the Joker for Halloween, which I thought was pretty funny. They goofed us.
Yeah, that I thought that was they had a lot of fun nods in this book. That they had the Penny, even some of the people that were dressed up as Jokers. I liked the throwback of the two girls. I'm trying to remember what their shirt said, but it's throwback to the commercial they filmed in the first movie. Like, I thought it was a lot of fun stuff. Like, there are definitely things that nostalgia wise you can grab onto, even if the book isn't 100% in line with where the films were.
I wasn't completely in love with this book, but I am recommending. I'm giving it like a 3.5 out of 5.
For sure.
Recommend.
It was fun, and I think sometimes we don't give fun enough credit, and it has potential. So I'm willing to keep giving it a shot.
All right. So the next big debut this week was I Am Batman #0 from John Ridley and Travel Forbin. And my goodness, for a 0 issue, what the hell is this thing? A 0 issue is laying the table so you can come in and jump into the series once you get to #1. This is like an intermission between stories. I have no idea what's going on. They're just acting like you read 12 issues of something.
Yeah, it's boring. That's what it is. I don't know. I was not impressed at all. For me, there's nothing here. Like, if you're trying to catch new readers, and they've got a piece of this book in a free comic book day coming up, and it just blew my mind because there's nothing here that makes me think like, oh, I've got to go pick this up. John Ridley, for me, well, I can't say that I've disliked what he's done, but I haven't liked it either. It's just been pretty mediocre, and he hasn't really kind of landed with a quality that I thought he was going to bring to the table. And then on top of that, I feel like his art in his books has just been subpar. And Travel Foreman
art in here sucks. It is the most bland, basic
bad
art you've ever seen in your life.
It's super. It looks like
it's in the Sunday funny pages.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like someone who's just trying to get into comics that created a webcomic, and it's their first week doing it. That's kind of what it looks like. But it's super flat.
Do you think it was originally supposed to be one of those DC digital firsts? Because that's the kind of art feel that I got to it, rather than something that they always intended to print.
Probably, honestly, probably. I think that because there was a discussion recently about they're wanting to push this, but if you're wanting to push it, why are you doing these as digital first? Because that's not where you're putting high-profile characters and books. So it may have just been a strategic change at the end to just go ahead and publish it.
It feels like it's a continuation of Batman's Second Son or whatever it is. Like, this was the next story arc, but they didn't want it to be Second Son anymore because that was digital first. So they renamed it and threw it in here.
Yeah. If you remember when they first were going from New 52 to the DCU thing, they did this type of stunt with a lot of characters where they had a special that was a short special, and then it ultimately did nothing for the characters in the books, and the tone was even different. I'm hoping that is the case, and that when we get I Am Batman #1, it's a different vibe and better execution.
There's also a lot of social commentary, specifically on cops and protesters, which I thought was weird because the cops are sitting there, and even though the protest is scheduled, there's cops there. And then the cops are the bad guys because the protesters start throwing rocks at them first.
Yeah.
What the fuck world are we in?
Yeah. Have you watched the news lately? This is definitely a sensitive subject for people, and I get that. I'm a white guy. I can't tell you what it's like to live as a black man. But I feel like anytime you're going to sit here and have a character throwing, and it wasn't like it was a tiny rock, it was like a good chunk of a rock. If you're going to throw it and hit a cop, there's going to be repercussions, and you're going to have, at that point, the people that are trying to make sure you're safe so you can do your protest, they're going to look at you as the people that aren't being safe, and they're going to stop that protest. They're going to just end it right there. And that's what happened. And then you go to Montoya, and she's like, how dare you,
Completely unhinged.
Yeah, I didn't get it. I didn't get it.
They could have killed one of your police officers. They're your responsibility.
And this is where the quality of writing from John Ridley, I was expecting it to be different. Like I felt like he was going to be someone that could come in and make this commentary and do it well, and it doesn't seem like it's being done well. And I don't know how much these plans have changed overall from what he was planning to come in and do originally. I don't know if his heart isn't in it. It just seems like he's phoning it in, and I think it's a shame because if it comes across he's phoning it in, they're never going to build Jace up like they want to.
Also, the last thing is Jace specifically says at one point, he's not interested in fighting bad guys anymore. He's interested in fighting systems, similar to what they are doing with John Kent in Superman: Son of Kal-El. So,
yeah, it's an interesting take because I think sometimes you have to understand systems, as flawed as they may be, are ultimately trying to do good. So if you fight them, what side are you actually leaning on? And they're
are you a superhero if you're going in and imposing your own will over the will of the people or government? It's
I don't
like
think
you're
so
becoming
at
a
all.
tyrant.
Yeah, no, I think free will is extremely important, and I think if you take that away, you're a villain.
Yeah. So those are the two comics we'll be able to look into more in depth this week. Hopefully we'll get more time next time, but there was just so much Batman stuff. The other Batman comics to note this week, we did get the rest of Batman Urban Legends. I'll talk about the Zdarsky series story in number 6. We got Pennyworth number 1, Joker number 5, and Detective Comics number 1041. There are a few other Batman related comics, but we just didn't have time. This is the end of Zdarsky's story in Batman Urban Legends with Jason Todd. I have a couple of issues with it. Oh, and as far as I Am Batman, I don't recommend it. I give it 2.5 out of 5 stars. I just don't think it was very good.
I don't recommend it either.
I was disappointed by this ending. Why did the whole Batman family show up there? It's been a Batman Red Hood story the entire time, and they just show up out of nowhere. And we needed more Jason Todd and Tyler. That was the heart and soul of the story. We didn't get enough of that.
Yeah, this story started off so well and kind of lost its footing. I think probably around midway through issue 4, and then 5 and 6 kind of fumbled the ball. But yeah, I'm never upset when I see the Bat family together, but I feel like Jason was owed this opportunity to really prove himself and pull through, because he's always viewed as the guy that just can't cut it, or he messes things up, or he's too brash. So it would have been nice to just let him have that moment and succeed. I also thought the ending was really weird when he was like, I'm not using guns anymore. Like, I understand his thought process, but he's like, I've been using rubber bullets, but no more. And I'm like, okay, what is the point here? Because I understand not wanting to use guns because you don't want to kill, and you don't want to kill because you see that killing, while it might be good to kill the bad guys, it has negative ripple effects elsewhere. Completely understand. But if you've been using rubber bullets, you're not killing. And guns are just pretty much a part of him at this point. So it was strange.
You know what was more strange to me?
What?
Batman's happiness when he was under the influence of cheer drops was murdering Joker. I would have assumed his happiness was a crime-free Gotham.
Yeah.
And no longer needing Batman.
That was. I tried to block that from my memory. I'm not going to lie. It was questionable. I'm being nice and saying it was quick. Zdarsky, you're letting me down, man.
Not the biggest fan of that. I do recommend that story because, as a total, it's still good. But Batman Urban Legends is a hot mess otherwise.
Yeah.
Not worth the money, in my opinion.
No. The backup stories are just atrocious. And hey, that Tim Drake story's in there too. So
this is one of them. The next big one of note is Detective Comics 1041, Mariko Tamaki and Dan Mora. Man, Dan Mora really saves this issue, and he's doing his best to elevate Tamaki's work, which is rather bland right now. I don't like the Jury. They come off, it's a stupid villain group.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to echo you. I love Dan Mora. He's one of my favorite artists. I hope he continues to do Batman and the Batman family for a good while because he's so damn good. As for Tamaki, it's a mixed bag. Overall, I've really enjoyed what she's been doing. She's doing a lot of subplots. It's going to take time for those subplots to come through and fully develop, but I think when they do, you're going to get a good payoff. But man, this issue, I started reading it and I had that thought of thank God for Tamaki. She's got, supporting characters. She's got subplots. I can kind of see she's building to something that could really be good. And then you have this whole Jury thing where they're doing this wannabe court case, not even in a fun way like they did with Two-Face decades ago. It's just weird and corny. And I got mad at myself for thinking, oh, this is good. And then reaching that scene and being like, well, I screwed myself over by thinking that. I ruined it. It's bad. It's rough.
Yeah, it's not all that great. But I just still think it was better than Joker and Pennyworth. Pennyworth was the other debut from Scott Bryan Wilson. The name does not ring a bell to me. Maybe I've read his work, but I didn't know it. Art by Juan Gedeon. Scott Bryan Wilson is on some Bendis level dialogue overload on this thing. This thing is word vomit the entire time. You got to show and not tell in these comic books. My goodness.
Yeah, I should have looked this up, but I definitely get the sense that he's probably a screenwriter with how much word bubbles are on there and captions. It's heavy with captions. I thought
the art's fine. It's not great, but it's fine.
Oh yeah, I mean, even the story itself, I thought it was okay. I have not watched the series, so if there's something tying into that's going to catch people's attention, I'm sorry I've missed out on that. But yeah, it was just okay. Like you've got kind of this throwback spy element going on there. I think it could be interesting to see Alfred
bouncing between 4 different time frames. I'm like, what are you doing?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's one of those that I'm not going to completely write it off, but I'm gonna read a few more issues and then make my decision. I feel like it's owed at least that, but I'm not excited about it.
It does not make a wonderful first impression. Just put that out there. It was like, my goodness. And then finally, we'll talk about James Tynion's Joker 5. He's going to be on Joker longer than Batman. His last issue of Joker is going to be in 2022. Guillaume March on art. Now, this comic book starts out phenomenal.
Yeah.
You get this weird mashup of the House of 1,000 Corpses and Beverly Hillbillies. I'm like, this is pretty cool. And then it just dies and the story goes nowhere.
Yeah. The first 4 issues of Joker were excellent. And I came into this not expecting to like the book, discovering that, clearly Gordon is actually the main character here. And it won me over. And then issue 5 was Rosenberg, and I feel like it went to trash in that issue. And then this one, it redeemed itself at the end a little bit, but overall, like I'm finding that I don't care, and it feels like a slog to read.
I like internal monologue, but we're getting the same internal monologue from Gordon every single issue now. It's very repetitive. You're not giving me new information. You're making me piece through information that I already know to see if there's anything new to glean, and it becomes boring.
Tiresome.
It becomes tiresome, tedious.
Yeah. I mean, when reading Joker, I did the same thing I did when reading Pennyworth. There were times, and I read it digitally, but there were times I kept touching my iPad to see what page I was on because I was getting tired of reading the book, and that's never a good sign. I'm hoping that things get back on track. It almost has a sense of he had an idea for a story that should have run a certain number of issues. DC probably wanted to push it as an ongoing series instead. So he kind of fell into that lost pattern of how do I keep this story going? And I'm hoping that, okay, we've set an end date. The fact that he's extending the story, I think, shows that it means something to Tynion, and he does have a story to tell. And I'm hoping that he can just pick the pacing back up and give it a good finish. That's what I'm crossing my fingers for here.
But I would read a Samson Family House of 1,000 Corpses Beverly Hillbillies mashup comic though. They seem really strange.
Really strange. I mean, look, I'm not gonna lie. I live in Texas, so there's a part of me that's like, man, why do we have to represent Texas like this? But they're creepy, and I think if you can bring a creepy element into a book where Joker is supposed to be the creepy element and kind of match him on his level, then hey, you're doing your job. So I can't complain about that. I want things to pick up. So
I'm with you. So that's our rundown of this week in Batman.
Wes,
not a lot of standouts as far as the comic book stories. I would say the one that does stand out is Batman 89.
Agreed.
Maybe Detective Comics because the art in there is fabulous.
Yeah.
But it's a little bit disappointing. We did not get Batman the Detective like we had been getting for the last, I think, 4 months, along with those other two. So good stuff. We got a lot of things happening in Batman. James Tynion's out. We don't know who's going to replace him. We've also got, what else we got? We've got Tim Drake has been confirmed bisexual. Not a lot of people are happy. It's causing a little controversy.
They haven't even confirmed that he's bisexual. Like
he's just going on a date.
Yeah, and even in the interview, she's like, "We haven't confirmed what he is." ... yet, and I'm just like, "Oh God." Yeah.
Some of the inner monologue made me think that maybe he's not going to be bisexual. He's going to realize he's not actually into women.
Yeah, I think they set this up in a way to test the waters to see what's the safest route. How are people going to respond? So
because it's going to pick up in like 5 months.
Right. Yeah.
That's when they said they're going to continue it.
Yeah, which is shameful.
Probably smart.
Oh yeah, but God, it just screams corporate overlords and the reasons why they're doing this. So.
All right. So, Josh, thank you so much for joining me for the first ever This Week in Batman. We'll do this as long as we can. You know, things change, but we'll definitely be covering all the Batman comics. Had a good time here. Is there anything else that you needed to say maybe we missed, or do you want to tell the viewers before we wrap up?
The only thing is I thought this right at the end. You mentioned, good thing that Tynion's going to be leaving Batman. I agree. I'm not a fan of him on the title. However, I know that he's been the architect for everything that's going on in the Bat titles, and there are other Bat titles that I've been enjoying.
He brought back Dick Grayson.
Yeah, so I'm curious to see what happens with Gotham. With
Oracle's back.
Yeah,
there are some things that have happened under his watch that I completely applauded for.
So we'll see. We'll see. That's all we can do is wait and see.